Hello and welcome to this quick video from me, the history tutor, and in this video we're going to be looking at the bullet point question 6 for the American topic 1920-1973 for the AQA exam. We're going to be deciding which was the most important in improving life in America. Was it the New Deal or the Second World War? Okay, so at the end of a long exam, you have the 12-marker bullet point question where you have to decide which is the most important, which is most significant, which is best out of two topics given to you in your AQA history exam. So we're going to be looking at the New Deal and the Second World War, which improved the conditions of America the most. We're going to go to a little quiz first of all, see what we can remember about the impact of America and how it improved life, and then we'll see if we can formulate a full grade 9 response and develop your skills. Okay, so as you can see, here's the question and also a quick quiz of just 6 questions about life during the war and the impact of the war. So use this as a recap about the Second World War and life in America. If you've got my revision guide, have a look through the pages, fill in the answers, see what you can remember. If you don't have my revision guide, why not? You should be getting it to help you develop your skills for your GCSE history exam. Okay, so pause me now and give it a go. Okay, so here is a set of answers and a little bit of an explanation about some of the things that are going on. So we have one US war policy to be named. So there were two. We had cash and carry and lend and lease. So when the war began, 1939, America was on very much a strong isolationist stance. They had policies passed through their Congress to not be involved in foreign affairs, European entanglements, not to get involved in all their arguments and all their wars. But America was clearly on the side of Britain against Germany and against Japan. So they were keen to help where they could. So cash and carry was brought in first of all, that things had to be paid for and then taken away by the British. They had to carry them away themselves. It was not going to be providing things. When the war sort of hotted up a little bit more and then Britain was isolated on its own, bankrupt, the policy was changed to lend lease. So this one was that America would lend the weapons to Britain to give back at the end of the war, probably with knowledge that really the reality was they were not going to get them back. But Britain could sort of use these weapons to help keep fighting. Obviously, this stimulated the American economy massively to be building all these weapons. So by 1941, unemployment dropped to 5.5 million. Okay, you've also got people starting to move around the country. Question 3. So we've got 400,000 Black Americans migrated from the South during the war, going west, places like California, where they're making planes and ships, going north to the big cities where they're involved in munitions. And of course, the South was regenerated as well by the war. How many women were employed? Up to 19 million women employed, and obviously involved in factories, involved in the army, all sorts of things. And then, so then, you need probably some good examples of how weapons were being manufactured and how this was stimulating the economy. So a good example is question number 5: the amount of planes manufactured. 250,000 planes manufactured in the factories. And how did the war help Black Americans? So obviously, higher pay. They were moving to the factories and getting good pay. More jobs in the north. The stimulus given to those big northern cities where there was poverty and crowded conditions before the war. Now there's more jobs. Factories were booming again. And end of segregation in the army and the navy happened during the war, particularly by 1945. Conditions were improving. And setting an example of non-segregated parts in society could be a great success. Okay, so let's have a look at the question now in a bit more detail. So question 6, the last one on your American topic exam. So which of the following had more impact on American recovery from the Great Depression? Was it Roosevelt's New Deal and Second New Deal, of course, or was it the Second World War? So explain your answer with reference to both. 12 marks. So what do you think you need to do to answer this question correctly? So pause me now, have a think about some of the skills you think you need to show to be successful with this answer. You might have all the knowledge in the world on this, but unfortunately, if you don't quite know how to meet the AQA guidance, you're not going to get all the marks. So let's make sure we know how to be successful with this. So have a think about all the words and think about now what you think and make a good answer in terms of your skills. Okay, you had a little bit of think, paused me and had a think. Well, here's my ideas. So we're going to explain using the Peel paragraphs, and obviously you're going to explain each bullet point. So each bullet point needs a paragraph. Okay, we're obviously going to support our points with factual evidence. We're going to make a point. Roosevelt's New Deal was somewhat important because we're then going to support it with some evidence. Focus on the question when you explain. This led to a recovery from Great Depression because, so that we're explaining the recovery. And then evaluate at the end in your link. Okay. If you don't think it's most important, you'd say, however, it didn't really help massively because, and give some evidence. If you think it really did help, it's really important, you can say furthermore and give a real bit, another big positive. Okay. So it should be quite clear. I've talked about this in other questions. Play the game. Have one of your bullet points that's partly a success and the other one that's mostly a success, so it's very obvious what you're arguing. Then it makes your final bit, the conclusion, really obvious because you've already said it throughout your answer, what you believe. Okay, so let's have a little plan. So what were the New Deal impacts? What were the Second World War impacts? Go through and have a think about some of those different impacts. You can, if you like, sort of, if you like, list an alphabet agency, then think about an impact. List another alphabet agency, think about an impact. Second World War, you can obviously say, munitions factories did this, the army did this. So start to think about planning your ideas. So pause me now and just come up with a list of ideas from your revision notes. Okay, so here's what I've come up with as a plan. So unemployment obviously is one of the impacts. So therefore it's dropping 25% down to 14%, but it went back up again after 938. Farmers, you've got the AQA, increased food prices and farm debts were cleared. You've got welfare, trying to improve the quality of people's lives with the Social Security Act led to better pensions and unemployment benefits. Economic growth, GDP went up from 60 billion to 90 billion. So generally the economy improving. Let's see, similar ideas. So I'm going to talk about similar things: unemployment, farmers, equality and growth, things like that. So similar ideas to compare. So unemployment, 1944 it's 10%, 1944 less than 1%. I think that might be a winner there. Farmers, boom in food prices. Didn't have to control them. They just was a boom in prices. They're providing food to the American army, the British, the Russian armies. There's a boom. Okay, so welfare wasn't needed so much because there was an increased wages. They increased to $1,000 a month. More women and black Americans were working with better pay. Economic growth was up to 120 billion by 1941 and many major companies growing. You could talk about how Ford, Coca-Cola, Hershey's, Wrigley's, all these companies recovering and doing really, really well in the economy. So I think it's pretty obvious that Second World War probably saved the day. So therefore, we want to have our New Deal paragraph as a somewhat important or partly important, and then have a however at the end. So let's have a go at this now. We're going to say the New Deal was somewhat important in recovery because, give a positive thing about it. We're going to explain this led to recovery because, then we're going to say a however and give a negative. Okay, so let's go through this together now. The first answer. Okay, so try and write your opening sentence now. You can pause me and write your opening sentence about somewhat important and a reason why. Okay, pause and over to you. Okay, so what I've written is because it started to solve some of the problems like trade and unemployment, and you could end that sentence, but not totally, there were still problems. Okay, so now I'm going to give an example. So I probably want to talk about some alphabet agencies here, okay, that started to lead a recovery. So, for example, the New Deal, and give some evidence. Okay, so pause me now and give a sentence of evidence about alphabet agencies. Okay, got yours? So I've kept it very, very simple. For example, the New Deal introduced the CCC and the PWA to give people jobs. Okay, so then I'm going to be saying this led to recovery from Great Depression because, and I'm going to use some of those unemployment information about getting the economy up and running. If you saw my In What Ways video, probably going to be similar to that in terms of what you're going to put into this one. Okay, so pause me and away you go. So what I've said is this led to recovery from the Great Depression because the CCC created 2.5 million jobs and the PWA set up public works like dam building, schools and hospitals. This improved the economy as unemployment dropped from 25% to 15% in the first 2 years of the New Deal. This helped to prime the pump of the economy and led to economic growth in GDP from 60 billion to 90 billion. Okay, really clear. Okay, but then I'm going to say, however, because I don't think this is as good as the Second World War, I think it's somewhat important. So I'm going to give a negative. So pause me now and give a negative of all this. Maybe unemployment, lack of growth, different groups of people still suffering. Give an idea now. So pause me and away you go. Okay, so what I've written then. However, after the end of the New Deal help in 1938, unemployment quickly rose back up to 20%. Also, New Deal failed to help minority groups. Black Americans in the South did not receive their quota of help from the CCC or remained segregated. So I could then give a little concluding sentence if I want. So overall, only partly helpful. Okay, so let's do the second paragraph now. Okay, so think about how you're going to start your opening sentence. We'll talk through this paragraph quickly. Okay, so however, the Second World War was very important to the recovery of the Great Depression because. So what are you going to write for that? How are you going to finish that first sentence? Pause me now and give it a go. Okay, so got an idea. So what I've written then is because it led to rapid growth in US businesses due to supplies needed for war. Keeping it very simple. So now I want to talk about the policies. So they're not alphabet agencies, but there are policies that led to manufacture of weapons. So maybe put those down as your examples. So for example, Second World War led to, and give some ideas. Okay, so pause me now and give it a go. Okay, it's got your idea. So I've said, for example, the Second World War led to rearmament policies such as cash and carry and lend-lease. Simple as that. Very simple sentence, quick fire again. So this led to recovery from Great Depression because. So now a sentence or two about how this led to recovery, maybe some of those stats about growth, unemployment, to get some ideas in. Okay, so pause me now and away you go. Okay, so what I've written is this led to recovery from the Great Depression because the USA decided to make weapons for Britain and lend them $7 billion worth of war supplies. This led to a dramatic drop in unemployment, only 5.5 million in 1941. I could have obviously talked about massive growth to $120 billion as well. So furthermore, the war helped businesses recover because, or helped, and give another idea maybe. I think businesses recover probably is a really easy thing to talk about. You've got all those businesses that are growing during this time, so maybe that would be, and the work of the War Production Board. These would be really simple things to talk about. So pause me now and give it another idea. So this is what I've written. Furthermore, the war helped businesses recover due to government contracts. The War Production Board built 250,000 planes, 9,000 tanks, and over 350 destroyers. This led to companies like General Motors and Ford making a rapid recovery. This meant that there was 0% unemployment in 1944 and women were needed in the workplace. This meant 19 million women in work. Okay, so a really nice way of ending with the wider impacts, but also analysis of different groups and how their life was benefited. We then finally did a conclusion. Make it clear what in your conclusion, which is the greatest impact. It should be clear in your answer because you've said one is somewhat, one is very important. So just make that clear again and just give a reason why it's your best choice, why the other one's not such a good choice, and that should be plenty for a good conclusion. So you can pause now and give your conclusion a go, and then have a look at an example in a moment. Here's my example. So in conclusion, the Second World War was far more important to American recovery as it solved more problems of the Great Depression. Although the New Deal solved the problems of the banks and started to solve unemployment, when the New Deal ended in 1938, unemployment rapidly increased. The Second World War and the huge amounts of military contracts solved this as unemployment rapidly decreased. Added to this, the Second World War led to huge government contracts for food, machinery and clothing supplies that led to a boom in all industries. This meant that all people were employed, pay rose to $1,000 a month, and even work for women and black Americans rapidly changed. So lots and lots of positives given there at the end. Not much mentioned in the answer, but all just clearly put together to round it all off. Okay, well, I hope you found that useful. A quick fire way in which you do that bullet point question to great success. Lots of analysis, lots of evaluation to make sure you get those top grade skills. Okay, so lots more videos where those came from. Do subscribe to find out more, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.